All right, so Jesus, welcome onto the Accent Training Podcast. It's great to get you in this, nice end of summer episode. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really good, Kat. Thank you for having me here.
Well, I would just love for you to introduce yourself and tell our listeners exactly what you do and even how you help people like them.
My name is Jesús Flórez. I'm 34 years old, and I live in the United States. I'm originally from Colombia in South America, and I've been here now for 9 years. My wife and I have 4 children, and my education back in my native country was to be an English as a second language teacher. In my time here in the US, I've had primarily office jobs, but I still want to dedicate my time and abilities and experience to teaching. I also learned English as a second language. My language learning journey basically goes all the way back to approximately the year 2004. And then in 2008, I started my education degree. That was my major. In 2008, I started my pronunciation or accent modification journey. And I can tell you more about that in a minute. And fast forward now to the present day. I'm an online teacher as well. I have the expertise and the knowledge to especially help native Spanish speakers with all of these things related to pronunciation. That's a very long answer. So I'll
No, that's
I'll give
fine.
it
I
over to
mean,
you so you can
oh, no,
maybe
I'm curious about something because I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate. I mean, I know we've got a lot of teachers who listen, actually. And so, what is it for you that kind of about teaching that kind of draws you into it? Or even, I could even say, what is it about the office life that you don't like? What is it that you want to get away from? Because clearly there's like this push away from the office life and into, education. So, yeah, well, I'm just curious what's happening there.
ultimately I believe that my skill set, my personality is better put to use teaching and helping others achieve what I have achieved. I am not made for an office environment. That is kind of like something that I do out of need. I don't really have any kind of loyalty or personal investment there. And it is the complete opposite with teaching. I I've been through the process, I've been on the journey, and I want to be able to assist others, you know, along that path. My all of my education and training was in teaching, and I don't want to, speaking personally, I don't want to see that just go to waste. And quite frankly, I believe that all of that all that skill set, those skills, that knowledge, it just wastes away in an office environment. I don't want to be in that situation for years on end. That realization is is a powerful one. I think it's a powerful one to have because you realize that money alone can only take you so far. I guess as far as motivation and those things are concerned, there has to be something else. There has to be something more to it. It can't just be about those numbers. That's the way that I would put it.
Good for you for, even though there's a risk to it, for
There
taking
is.
those steps and like, it's a really unique area that you've come to teach. For myself, I know how I got into accent coaching and I've spoken about that a bit on the podcast in the past, but I'm curious for you, what is it exactly about the American accent that you're like, I really want to be an accent coach. Like, it's such
Mhm.
an
Yeah,
interesting, unique area to focus on. What's pulled you in that direction?
my desire to go into speech or accent modification came from this down to earth wish to be understood and taken seriously when I spoke English. And this started all those years ago in 2008. That's a significant year in my language learning journey for some reasons. But the accent training for me started there. And it was motivated, driven by this desire to be understood and be taken seriously and to be understood easily. And I've been cultivating that accent all these years. It's 16 years. It should be 16 years, I think, in November or October, one of those two. And it continues to this very day. And I think I have something to show for it. I did it. You can do it too. Something like that.
And you humbly say it's always improving. So, you know,
Absolutely.
and that's it. Would you say is that an important attitude to have, that there's always something to improve?
I absolutely would say so. I would I would just maybe nuance that a little bit by saying that the foundation is something that you build through that, let's say, direct instruction with a specialist, with a coach in this case. You build a foundation and you make it as rock solid as you can. And then you build upon it and you constantly maintain that foundation. You polish it, you embellish it, you add more to it. I like to think of, for instance, an image that I conjure up in my mind is, think of the building of a skyscraper. You dig big holes for the foundation and you go as deep as you can to make it rock solid, stable. And then you add the frame, you get the concrete and whatever else, like miles and miles of stuff, all of the construction material. And it keeps, going up and up, and you refine, these things. That's where I say that the learning or that refinement never really stops. Your foundation is laid, and then, like I said, you build upon it, you maintain it, you do, all of those things. I think building analogies, work really well for something like this. That's why I like to think of it that way. But you can be very sure in that foundation.
And I mean, I like the wording that you use there too. Like, this is a skyscraper that you're building. So yeah, they make this chasm, this massive chasm in the ground, in order to build it. I've seen, like, in Toronto, I've seen them building them. And the interesting thing is, if you think about it, so that those are the tallest buildings that we'll build as a civilization, at least in today's modern age.
Hmm.
If you compare that with a mobile home with no basement, that's about as high as you can go without a good foundation, is a mobile home. Not very big, and it's just a little trailer. They're cozy little places, but they don't, meet the same standard of living as you might get in the penthouse of a skyscraper. An interesting way to consider the more foundation that you have, and the stronger, as you said, you solidify that foundation, then the bigger things that you can build upon it. Foundational training is what it's going to take in order to tackle those in the long run. So I appreciate your approach there, Jesus. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I'm learning from you too. So there you go.
What is the ideal problem that you feel you're solving for people who are
Mm,
Spanish speakers coming to the United States or maybe interacting with American, whatever the situation is? What do you feel is the most important problem that you're solving for your clients?
a confidence problem. If you're not sure, or if you don't have that strong foundation for clear speech, you're going to be inhibited in the opportunities that you can have and the people that you can interact with, the connections, the relationships. And I feel that the knowledge that I can impart to people is a massive confidence booster. I know, for example, that that's the way that I felt once I started to learn about all the building blocks, all these foundational elements of speech. Once I knew and had confirmation that this is the way that people really talk, my confidence levels just went through the roof. That's what I would say is the main thing that I can solve, you know, to use that terminology there for someone, building awareness as well. When I started my own accent pronunciation journey, one of the things that clicked for me at some point was this awareness that me speaking in my second language, should be different from the way that I speak my first language, was one of those things that really helped me to be willing to try out all of these things, all of these gestures and exercises, which seem silly, but that will pay off in the end greatly. So that's what I would say there.
When do you believe it's most important to be confident speaking English for the average person?
Just to kind of keep it really down to earth for lots of people, building those professional connections means a whole lot. And in those cases, being sure of your own voice, not just the sounds, but just your own voice, you as an individual, presenting your own ideas, standing up for yourself in a way. In those situations that could be considered somewhat high stakes, confidence will be a decisive factor. After that, it will be your own skill set, knowledge or abilities, things like that. But I think of those high stakes situations, that involve relationships with people, be they personal or professional. Those are life defining and they're going to be seen as really, high stakes, basically kind of like your life depends on it, thing.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. High stakes situations, typically making connections at work. Like if you have career advancement on the line and speaking English confidently is the key to seeing that career advancement, then, I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm really happy to know, that you've got so much to offer people from all over the world. I'm sure you could even help people who weren't Spanish speakers, but I would consider you kind of like a specialist in Spanish speaker development, just in an easy word. That's what I would say. Well, Jesus, we're going to get to wrapping things up for today. Just it's getting late, and I want to let you get back to your own family. I'm just curious, do you have any final pieces of advice that could maybe even give just a 1% boost in someone's spoken English skills, specifically to that Spanish speaker who's working on their accent, who wants to get a promotion? What would you tell that person that's going to help them get 1% closer to their English speaking goals today?
I would say if you really want to start to begin, increasing that confidence by 1%, I recommend that you start paying very close attention to that ah sound. Once you hear it, or once you become aware of it, you're not going to be able to stop hearing it because it really is everywhere. It really is. So that's one thing. Really, get that ah sound. Don't be afraid to use the muscles. Don't be afraid to project the voice and everything, like you say. That's one sound. And then the other another vowel sound here is what you have now dubbed the broad A sound, like ah as in father. Believe me, those two sounds really pave. If you can get those two sounds down, it does wonders. Almost like, I want to say, overnight to your intelligibility. Work on those two things. Give me a clear ah sound, give me a clear ah sound. You're on the way.
I've got a question for you. Do you want to express yourself in English just as clearly and confidently as you do in your native language, knowing how your words are going to connect with the other person every time? Well, my friend, you are in luck. I have positions available for accent training, and I'm looking for non-native English speakers who need English for professional interactions. I have limited spots available, and this is the last time that I'll be holding this program for the rest of 2024. So if you're someone who needs English for key professional interactions or high-stakes communications at work where you need to build some personal connections with people, and you want to see it happen before the end of 2024, open the link in the description of this podcast episode, fill out the application to train one-on-one with me, Pat, and if we see that you're a good fit to be training with my method, we'll be in touch to work together.